Joining us right now to talk about the auto industry's electric future and the chip shortage that it's facing is Mark Fields. He's the former Ford Motor Company president and CEO. And Mark, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Becky.
I wanted to start with what Ron Barron had to say, because he's long been a Tesla bull. He's been in since, I think, 2014 in that stock. Thinks it's really going to go up, even though he sold some of his shares recently because of the huge rise that it's seen. But the thing that really struck me is he's also made a recent investment in GM's Cruise. He thinks that EV is really coming. And I just wonder, is the auto industry prepared for that? And are you as bullish as some of these EV investors have been?
Well, I do think when you look at some of the EV investors, I think they're getting a little bit too caught up maybe in some of these EV companies that are going public via SPACs. But that being said, is EVs are here to stay and they're going to be growing. You have a number of products coming to the market this year and next year. And so the big question is, are consumers going to show up? And at least the initial data so far is showing that electric vehicles are growing in the first couple of months of this year. But again, Becky, that's going to be dictated by how consumers feel about their ability to charge their vehicles conveniently, and the infrastructure needs to be built out here in the U.S. And then secondly, the cost. And right now, electric vehicles are more expensive than internal combustion engine vehicles, but that's going to be solved over the next couple of years. And if the government gets more active in providing incentives for electric vehicles, around the world, that's proven to be, if you will, the formula for success for sales in the current term.
Who do you think comes out on top? We've seen Tesla do incredibly well, but we're looking at some of these stocks at other new companies that have certainly won in the stock market recently. But you also have the entrance of all the legacy car makers. How do you think it actually plays out?
Well, I think you're obviously going to see electric vehicles as a percent of the industry continue to grow. When you look at first movers like Tesla, they tend to compete in the upper end of the market. Listen, they've done well. They're building plants in Europe, another one here in the U.S. And every vehicle that they're bringing out to the market is incremental, so it's not impacting other vehicle sales. So I think they'll continue to be strong. But don't underestimate the legacy OEMs. Ford, for example, is coming out with a number of electric vehicles. The Mach-E is off to a great start. GM, as you've mentioned, has said, listen, by 2035, all their vehicles will be electrified. And I think the market, if you look at the market caps of these companies, these legacy OEMs, the market is starting to get the fact that, you know what? They're going to produce really good electrified vehicles, and they know how to do it at scale and with quality. So I think you're going to see a lot of winners. You're also going to see a lot of companies that will get into operational problems, particularly those that are just targeting the very high end of the market, because that's only so big, Becky.
Hey, Mark, we just saw this week, we've been following this shortage of semiconductors, how it's impacted the auto industry, but just saw this week that GM says it's looking at extending some of its shutdowns for its plants because they just can't get their hands on chips. How big of a problem is this, and what's the solution?
Well, this is a big problem. You've seen the downtimes the OEMs or the automakers have announced. To put it into perspective, some plants have been down the month of February. And if you look at some OEMs, and they said some of these plants are going to be down through not only April, but in some cases through mid-May. And that's almost as much as the plants were down last year during COVID. Now, it's not all the plants, but still, it'll shave about 700,000 units off here in the U.S. the first quarter production. So it's a big deal. Wow. It's probably going to go longer than people expect, and we all know the reasons why, right? People are using, working from home and buying laptops and buying more Wi-Fi access points for their houses or upgrading their broadbands. And the bottom line is the capacity in the industry has been strained, and it's been exacerbated by things like, if you look at AMD, that's taking share from Intel. Intel has captive foundries. AMD goes to the outside foundries, just like the auto industry. So I think this is going to persist for quite some time. And the thing that's going to solve it is a normalization of demand as people focus on coming out of COVID and traveling instead of spending time at home, and more capacity coming online.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.